What's up, docs and dockettes? Trevor Thompson, the self-appointed Looney Tunes critic here, and all right, enough's enough. Time for me to weigh in on a particular topic of discussion that a lot of other YouTubers, whose purview is not the world of Looney Tunes Merry Melodies, have as well. It's the whole Elmer, Fudd, Yosemite Sam no gun debate. Wait, is it a debate? It's not a debate. Warner Brothers is going to do whatever they want. I think it's not a debate. I think the word I was looking for when I wrote this script was debacle. Yes, the whole Elmer, Fudd, Yosemite Sam debacle. And sure, some of you have noticed that the hashtag Let Elmer Shoot was started by me, as were these two memes. But that's as maybe. If you're not aware, HBO Max has announced not too long ago that in its new cartoon series, Looney Tunes Cartoons, Elmer, Fudd, and Yosemite Sam would no longer be seen to use, or, more to the point, fire their previously trademarked guns. And if you want to sound sensational, you could say that this sparked a controversy, which apparently would extend to people who somehow mistook this to mean that HBO Max, which also streams the classic Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies, was, in addition to not having guns in the new shorts, either not going to stream any cartoon where they have their firearms, or somehow go back and animate the firearms out. I don't know what people thought that they would replace them with. Maybe walkie-talkies.
Very funny.
Well, of course, all of that is not true, and I'm here to clarify a number of the things that everyone is getting wrong about this. Because believe it or not, that is actually why I started making videos as Looney Tunes critic in the first place. Oh, sure, Looney Tunes have always been and probably always will be in the zeitgeist, so naturally once YouTube reviewers became a thing, there was going to be a lot of people covering Warner Brothers' crown jewel characters, and as such, because they, unlike me, haven't been studying the Looney Tunes since they were 6. Seriously, dude, the first book I read cover to cover when I was 5 was Steve Schneider's That's All, Folks. So because everyone else isn't as appointed a Looney Tunes critic as I, they get a lot of shit wrong. And this particular story is no exception. Well, maybe I shouldn't say it like that, but a lot of YouTubers are covering this one. Some I love and respect, like Dave Lee Down Under and Joe Rogan, who has already interviewed me back when I was a ripped, tattooed army guy.
Boom, and we're live. What's up, Trevor? How are you, brother?
Damn good. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. You're a coffee snob?
Coffee addict.
So just for the record, he's the Trevor Thompson that's a Navy SEAL and also a coffee snob, and I'm the Trevor Thompson that's shaped like a seal and also a cartoon snob. So, just to clarify. But yeah, as I was saying, the no gun discussion was being had by some YouTubers I love, and some I've never even heard of. And oddly enough, the ones I love for the most part got everything right, and the folks I'm unfamiliar with were, well, let's just say more problematic. But before I get into that, let's try to figure something out. All we can do is try. Oh wait, that's just me. Let's see if we can pinpoint the last time that Elmer and Sam ever used their guns. No, Sam, I'm not talking about those guns. So the thing that a lot of people don't know is that this rule about the guns didn't start with Looney Tunes cartoons. Oh no. This is a rule, in fact, several rules that are almost 20 years old now. Elmer and Sam have not been able to fire their guns for quite some time. But Trevor, I hear some of you not asking, what about stuff like Daffy's Rhapsody, where we see Elmer multiple times firing at Daffy, or Looney Tunes Back in Action, or all these video games? By the way, on Looney Tunes Dash, there was a weird decree that Warner Brothers made where Elmer could use his gun, but on the cover of the game it had to be corked. I don't know what that's about. But anyway, these are all relatively new productions, so how did those specific examples get around it? Well, the rule is actually only in place for television. That's right, TV only, which, if you know the original shorts to be theatrical, which they were, then it should make sense to you why they've never censored the classic cartoons where Elmer and Sam have their guns. The rule does not apply. And if they were making new theatrical cartoons, there's a good chance that they would have their guns because it's theatrical. Now, we all know there are multiple instances where the cartoons get censored for television, but whether or not that happens is not a decree on the part of Warner Brothers, but rather those individual stations and platforms that run the old shorts. So yeah, if you're watching TV and you notice that one of the old, theatrical cartoons, a gun gag is censored, that's not Warner Brothers doing that. I'm talking specifically, this is a decree on the part of Warner Brothers and HBO Max. But yeah, for all this talk about how close we're getting to going back to the old ways with Looney Tunes cartoons, the fact that you can't see Elmer and Sam with their guns in these new outings should be even more proof that these are television animation quality. They spent a fortune, for sure, and previous Looney Tunes TV shows have never been this good, without a doubt. But make no mistake, Looney Tunes cartoons is still TV animation and thus inferior to the theatrical originals. However, there can be no disputing that the last 3 Looney Tunes projects were television shows, and there were definitely gun rules in effect for Looney Tunes Show, Wabbit, and New Looney Tunes, but that doesn't mean they didn't get around the rules on occasion. So that's what this video is about. Basically, I'm not going to be able to find the last time these 2 characters used their guns on TV, although in Fudd's case, it may be this version of him from Lunatics Unleashed.
What's up, Fudd?
Now, there's arguments to be made on either side as to whether this counts, like this isn't Elmer, but one of his descendants, and they're not firing actual guns but futuristic lasers. But look, to really get into it would require actually watching this horse shit, and I've already vowed that I would never review this series, so it shouldn't surprise you that I'm not going in depth. But, you know what? Come to think of it, there's probably a cameo somewhere during the Spielberg era in the 90s where either Sam or Elmer show up blasting their guns, but I don't have time to search all that either. I will say this, though. Just because Elmer and Sam can't fire traditional bullets out of their traditional guns, it does not mean that the artists on these TV shows haven't done some clever things to get around these not at all new rules. For example, Looney Tunes Laugh Riot, the precursor to the Looney Tunes show. It was made when the rule was in effect, and yet Elmer was allowed to have his classic shotgun and fire it at bugs, which was a surprise to the artist working on it, like Jessica Barutsky.
But the Laugh Riot, I think originally it was going to be a lot more wacky. Like, it started off with Elmer Fudd chasing Bugs Bunny, even had a gun, I believe, in it. And it was just really, a lot of energy and crazy.
By the way, for more of my interview with Barutsky, not to mention the rest of the Looney Tunes Laugh Riot pitch pilot, check out the upcoming review of Looney Tunes cartoons. So if you look at those gun blasts, they're not gun smoke and fire, are they? No, they're paint. And it's never expressly stated that Elmer's firing a paint gun, but the way that they were able to get around the rule was if the blasts were colorful paint-like blotches, he could hunt Bugs and Daffy again. Now, the rules, I should say, they changed with every show. So the last time Elmer and Sam were seen with their guns would have been somewhere in the final seasons of New Looney Tunes. I've heard from a reliable source in the know that Sam was allowed to use his guns in Season 1, at least at the beginning when the character was still being voiced by Maurice LaMarche. The logic there being that the guns were part of his legacy. But that didn't last very long. And for sure, as the country experienced more and more mass shootings, the rule changed, especially with Elmer because he had a rifle. So if we go to the last few episodes of the last season, what is there in terms of gunness? Well, not a whole heck of a, actually. Sure, there's moments where there's guns, but merely the presence of guns isn't a point of contention. One of the last episodes of the final season, a 2-parter called The Silly Six, definitely had gun potential, or gun-tential, as both Elmer and Sam are in it, and it's set in the Wild West. Now, before I get into this one, let me just say, I love this little mole character. He's funny to look at, and the stuff he does and says is funny too, and with television animation these days, that's all you can ask for, and they pulled it the hell off here. And really, the irony about guns in this one, as pertains to this mole character, is he makes a gun out of a toaster that shoots bread, and the first 2 people he takes out with it are Elmer and Sam. But even with the Wild West setting and the bread gun, perhaps on loan from Eddie Izzard.
Yeah, bread for my bread gun!
Neither Sam nor Elmer, nor anyone else for that matter, fires a gun with bullets in this epic 2-parter set west of the Pecos. Episode 24 of Season 3, Sam the Rough Rider, shows the diminutive Ginger firing a cannon, but nobody fires cannons anymore, not even Civil War reenactors, so I guess it's fine. I guess that was their logic.
Whatever! Well, I suppose!
Going further back to Episode 8, and this is the episode most people have cited as an example of Elmer with a gun, but he's a pilgrim. I mean, what do you expect? He had to have a gun. It's part and parcel to the whole... He needed a gun the same way that he needed a hat with a belt buckle on it. I mean... That's just what you gotta have, an old-timey gun that nobody would ever use. It's actually called a blunderbuss. Keep that in mind, that word, blunderbuss. It's gonna come up, well, actually, in the next sentence. So, where was I? Here we are. While Mr. Fudd does indeed have a gun, or rather a blunderfuckle, or whatever the fuck these things are called, he never fires it. And sure, that might be the case in most of these episodes where firearms are present, but then there's this, episode 6 from season 2, Water, Water Everywhere. Well, first of all, I've been on record as saying, as a lot have, that this show is not the best. But the interesting thing about that is, when a show isn't great, the things that are really good stick out even more. So, let's just say it. This cartoon is funny and well-timed, and while I'm not a huge fan of D. Bradley Baker's Daffy, he's pretty good here. And I love those backgrounds. At best, the backgrounds in this series are okay. But I really love looking at those funny little trees, and the colors are great. Kudos to these folks. Bravo. So the one segment of this episode where Elmer has his blunderbuss. Okay, blunderbuss. So the one segment of the episode where Elmer has his blunderbuss, he's wearing his hunting hat too, and I guess that's more of that legacy business, but in this cartoon, he actually fires the gun.
I finally got him!
There's a hole in your theory, and by theory, I mean canoe! Woohoo!
Now, as previously stated, I have it on good authority that the reason Elmer was allowed to fire his gun at all here is because he didn't fire it at Daffy. And also, he never aims the gun at Daffy. That's a bone of contention, too. One of the big no-nos on every Looney Tunes TV series was that the characters could not put guns in each other's mouths, or along with it was the decree that if the gun was pointed at a character, you couldn't point them at each other anyway. But if it was pointed at a character, you could also never see it from the character's perspective, and that's because, in that case, Elmer would then, or Sam would then be pointing the gun at the audience, aka kids. You can never see Elmer or Sam pointing the gun at the camera, at the audience. You'll never see Elmer or Sam putting a gun in anyone's mouth, pointing it at the screen, or even, frankly, pointing it anywhere. So that's why when Elmer uses the duck call, he's aiming the gun where he thinks Daffy is going to be and not where Daffy actually is. You know, I almost forgot. I was going to make a note or two about these other YouTubers treading on my territory, but really, really, it's not worth it, is it? I mean, these two are a couple of casual observers whose opinions are a dime a dozen, worth precisely that, and their banter is banal. Burns and Allen, they ain't, so we move on. Now, this young lady can speak, but she's a YouTube ranter, which means that all she has to do is spew her first thought into the camera, and she's met her own standard of quality for the day. She claims the Looney Tunes are satire, and that's why they should have their guns. And also says reboots shouldn't change, which would explain to me why she loves Star Wars. The stuff Dave Lee got wrong I've already covered, and that really just leaves Joe Rogan. I love Joe. Partially because he's a stand-up comic and podcaster, like I was at one time, and also a marijuana advocate, and, you know, he sort of helped to normalize it too. Get it? Normal? I mean, most people smoke weed now, even with their coworkers after lunch. Anyway, Joe and his guest, Kalayan Noir, both gun advocates, say that Elmer's now using a scythe, which is way more violent. Now, that is true, but he's only using the scythe in Dynamite Dance, one cartoon. Noir did a video where he interviewed one of the writers for the new cartoons who claimed that the Vegas shooting was the inspiration for the rules. Now, while I'm sure that was the impetus for Looney Tunes cartoons, the rules about the guns being in place for previous Looney Tunes TV shows, I'm sure, played a part here. So yeah, that's going to do it for this quickie. And I know the subject matter may be a little bit of old news at this point, but hey, I'm still buried in my work, trying to get this new series Peasant I started called Tex Avery Tuesdays going. Not to mention trying to finish the upcoming Looney Tunes cartoons review I'm doing in time for the release of Season 2 on HBO Max. And also, been trying to build the set. This quickie about the guns kind of got away from me though. In fact, I started it on Bugs' actual birthday, July 27th, to give you some idea of how long this one's been on the back burner. But I did celebrate the rabbit's birthday on the official day, and I did that by drinking some carrot juice in my 50th birthday glass and watching A Wild Hare for the millionth time. And apparently the new HBO Max tunes did some celebrating of their own that day, as we see here. Jesus, I have been sitting on that footage forever, you guys. Oh sure, by now we've all seen it, but I got my hands on it early, and I held onto it like a good boy. That's right. Don't ever let it be said that I can't hoard me some footage. Oh no. Challenge met, my friends. Challenge met. I got great copies of rare cartoons that have never even been released. In fact, you know what? Speaking of hoarded footage, fuck it. I was gonna wait to put the rest of the Laugh Riot pilot in the next big review, but that's taken a bit longer than I thought it would to get done, so I think I'll use the remaining time in this video to let folks see it now. But yeah, the only channel on YouTube worth subscribing to for accurate and specific news pertaining to all things Looney Tunes is this one, Ferris Wheelhouse. And you should all do that right now. Go on, go subscribe. And then you don't have to worry about the whens and wheres of my next video. You can just relax in your rabbit hole in front of the big screen and watch, awaiting notification. Hey Bugs, who's that you're watching?
Trevor Thompson, the self-appointed Looney Tunes critic. Ain't he a stinker?
Yeah, you know, not for nothing, but if we're gonna get an official voice to acknowledge me for the end of the video, don't you think it should really be Porky? Yeah, me too. Say what's up to the people, Porky.
What's up, folks? You're listening to Trevor Thompson, the self-appointed Looney Tunes critic. Although everyone's a critic. That's all, folks.